Good evening and welcome to Resolutions for Recovery. This show is dedicated to the education and empowerment of substance use disorder. Substance use disorder today in this country, whether it be alcohol or marijuana or the heroin and opiate epidemic, is rampant. So we need to really, as communities, come together and fight the good fight as communities. And Thomas's Hope Foundation is proud to be a part of a new innovative program here on Long Island in the Catholic health systems, specifically at Good Samaritan Hospital, with the peer recovery coaches, and Thomas's Hope is the family peer recovery coaches. So meeting people where they are at one of the most vulnerable times in their life due to an overdose or too much alcohol or whatever the case may be. And we are really already seeing the results of a very short time being in the emergency room. And tonight my special guests are Nicole, Carey, who is a case-actee and a certified recovery peer advocate, Sherpa, and part of the Sherpa team.
Hi.
We can't say that too quickly.
No.
And I'm proud to say she's on Thomas's Hope Board of Directors. And we have Melissa Wettnagel. Did I say that right?
Sort of. It's okay.
And you are the program director for Family Children's Association, which Thomas's Hope is proud to collaborate with, and want us to talk about what the Sherpa program is and the light that we are bringing to a very insidious disease. And certainly I know firsthand what it is to be a family member in that horrific roller coaster ride that becomes your life. So tell me, we've been there for maybe a month, we'll call it a month, and the staff at the hospital is so warm and welcoming now. They weren't at first, but they are now. So it's been, we've won them over. So tell me, Melissa, first, your vision for the program.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. So Sherpa is named after the mountaineering guides in the Himalayas, because navigating the substance use disorder system is extremely difficult. There's twists and turns and caverns, and you really do need a guide. It's like climbing Mount Everest.
Never mind the fact that either as a patient you're sick and suffering and not capable of making all the phone calls.
Exactly.
And as a family, you are lost and stressed and emotional, and you name it, you're going through that at that moment in time.
Right. So we are a trained team of peer recovery coaches. We're certified health professionals who go through a pretty extensive training. We utilize our lived experience either as family members of people who've struggled with substance use disorders or ourselves. We've all been through something. We're all recovering from something, and we support other people who are struggling themselves. And specifically, Sherpa is taking advantage of a missed opportunity in hospital emergency departments where people are cycling through, and it's a really good chance to connect with people. They're ready for action at that point. In many cases, they've had a near-death experience when they've survived an overdose. We had close to 1,300 Narcan saves in 2016. Unfortunately, many of them are leaving our emergency departments. Sherpa,
and 670 of them passed away.
Yeah. So we're looking to connect with them, to engage, build some trust, and then just connect them with whatever services they may be looking for, because the staff at the hospital doesn't necessarily have the training. There's some stigma there. They've kind of built up a thick skin over the years based on what they've seen, and frankly, they don't have the time, because even the Sherpas, as you said, we've been there a month, even the Sherpas who are there, and this is all that they're doing, still run into quite a few barriers, and it is not easy to navigate this system.
No, it is not easy to navigate the system.
Yeah.
So, Nicole.
Hi. Well, thanks for having me. It's
Of
always
course,
a pleasure.
always.
I mean, for me, the peer model, it's been around for a long time, but it's more about really being someone who shows compassion and gives dignity to human beings who are suffering from a disease that's, unforgiving. So a lot of times they're sick, they're suffering, they keep on entering the ER, keep on entering into the ER, and they're not treated with respect. So the compassion piece is important to me because they're hopeless, right?
Yes.
So there's an individual who can come to their bedside and meet them where they're at and treat them like a person. And to me, that's priceless. And you may just get a glimmer of hope at that one moment that will give them the motivation to maybe engage treatment. It's kindness, basically.
It's kindness. It's a lot of things. So, being a family member and being in the emergency room and having healthcare professionals look at you as, well, you failed as a parent. You didn't do, not how can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is one horrific disease and I can see that you're stressed and under tremendous pressure here. That doesn't happen in the emergency room. It's judgment, it's, and that stigma and that everything that you feel less than. You already feel, any parent that goes through this, what did I do wrong?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because, you're always responsible for your child.
Right.
And raising them, right?
Right.
You pick them up when they fall down, you brush their hands off and their knees off, and you take care of them. This is not something that you can fix.
Right.
The family piece is also important because obviously we know just as the individual is suffering, so is the family. And a lot of times you don't have someone who's trying to help the family out.
Yes.
And oftentimes, sometimes even, the family, this is the first time they're really discovering that their child is suffering. So they're just as much in a crisis and in a state of, I need help now, and whether that's I need help helping him or I need help to help me right now. So I think that the dual concept in the program is really something that's unique and special because we know that it's a family disease. And I think being able to provide support to the identified patient and also the family member is really great in the success of outcomes long term.
And the successful outcomes is also, you may have a family that is readily available and willing to do what it takes to become well, other than the identified person, because they have their own work to do. They have their own recovery to seek. And or you're going to find out that you have a family that's very unwilling to admit that they have any dysfunction at home, and that's their problem, and unwilling to make any changes, which changes the direction for the patient struggling, because we know that that's not a safe place for them to go home to.
Right.
And sending them home is just going to lead them down the same road again.
Right. And we've seen all those combinations and permutations just since we've begun.
Yes, because, listen, every family is dysfunctional. I'll say it out loud. Every family's got something. So it's whether you're willing to correct that little something or make it livable for all inhabitants of your household.
But it also gives the family, and we talk about shame, which is really, the underlying theme in everything here, and the stigma that's attached to it is often so not great. So a family member may not know where to go, may not be able to talk to other family members about it, and having someone in the ER that's been there that can take their hand and say, listen, I know where you're at and I'm here if you need me, and really kind of walk them through that process. I think that would be such a relief. Right,
it is such
to just
a relief.
have somebody there who says, I'm here for you.
They've been desperate for the support.
Exactly right. And the patients, just having somebody that says, I can help you today. We're not going to make you leave here right now.
Yeah. And I think we found there was a bit of a misconception that patients were cycling through the emergency department and didn't necessarily want help. And we have actually found that all 28 of the individuals that we've engaged with since we started a month ago, they all want help.
Right.
They may not be ready for the same type of help that we all think that they should be ready for, but nobody wants their life to continue in that manner.
You know, I can just speak for my son. He never, never wanted to be that person, because I always, and I'll say it, I always say it, when Thomas was Thomas, he was unbelievable, charismatic, good looking, funny, smart, all those things. Thomas, on substances, was a mean, deviant thief who didn't give a damn about anything or anyone, just getting his next fix, because his body demanded that. That wasn't my son. That was my son kidnapped by substance use disorder. So these people are not bad people. We have to get rid of the good and bad, because they're just unhealthy at this. They're sick and suffering.
Right.
And what you expect from them should go along with someone sick and suffering with a disease.
Yeah. And there's just something about engaging with someone who you know has been there and you know gets it, that immediately that feeling of being judged goes away. These people are walking around being judged everywhere they go, and to just feel like that goes away and be able to let your guard down and share with someone who gets it has been invaluable
Yes.
to people. Yeah.
Next week we're going to have all the coaches on, so
I'm
that
so
should be
excited.
fun. Yes.
Yes, they're excited. I told them.
Well, it'll be interesting. Will be a lot of people all at the same time.
Right.
It's tough work that they do, and
It is tough work that they do.
You know, I really commend individuals who really want to take the lead there, because they're really like the forefront. They remind me of like the infantry in the war.
Yeah, it's
like
boots on the ground.
Absolutely.
Boots on the ground,
Boots on the ground.
and they're dealing with a lot of stuff every single day, and it's not
But
easy.
part of a 12-step fellowship also is to give back which was so readily given to you. So I think that for every one of us, whether it be family or peer, whatever the case may be, if you can help someone else and it makes a difference to just one person,
Right.
then you've done a great job with your life.
Right. Right.
So, you
Yeah.
know, you
And
plant a seed, you're not responsible for the plant to grow.
Right.
That's up to your higher power
Right.
at that point in time, but that's
Right.
my simple philosophy on life.
And I identify as a person in recovery, and one of the things I love about working as a peer is I get to live my recovery every day.
Yes.
You know, and I get to be Melissa for a living, you know, and
Yes.
that's a beautiful thing.
And I think, I know that anyone who's in recovery, when you work your program works. So when you stay connected to either helping people and being around people that are in a very strong recovery, because abstinence is not recovery.
Right.
So simply giving up a drink or a drug doesn't make you in recovery.
Right.
It's embracing that lifestyle and
Right.
enjoying that lifestyle. And family members having to admit, perhaps, it's not a great idea for us to have a liquor cabinet in the house right now. Maybe for the rest of our lives. And you know what? That's okay.
Right.
Because our family member is more important than us having a glass of wine at dinner.
Well, that's the other piece. It's the conversational piece. It's about, how do you help someone who's in the same, how do you give them the education and the tools that they need to safeguard their loved one or their family member? And I feel also it like provides hope. And it's also building in like a support for the concept, because what happens if the individual that you are trying to help does not get well?
Correct.
The family still needs help and support through that process, because sometimes that is a reality, which is unfortunate.
Most times, not everybody is willing to go to treatment right away. So by engaging the family, the stronger the family gets, the identified person kind of gets into that proverbial corner. And then they will say, all right, I give up.
Right.
Because the manipulation and the lies and the chaos that they got to create, when that gets settled and you can't push all those buttons
Right.
anymore, you're more apt
Right.
to give up.
Right.
You're more
Right.
apt to say help
Right.
because they think in the midst of their disease
Right.
that nobody else realizes what's going on with them. And I'm only doing it to me. Why do they care what I do to myself? It's none of their damn business. Because that's the way the disease talks to them.
Right.
So as the family, and especially the siblings, I always have a special place for all the other children because I know how difficult it is for the other children in the house that have voices that go unheard.
Right.
And many parents, right? So you have 3 children.
Yeah.
Your guys are little too. You know, when other children are playing sports and nobody shows up because you're involved with the other child who's cycling out of control, that only goes so long.
Yeah.
Because listen, when you're little, you're selfish. And as well you should be, because you're entitled to equal time, as they say, right?
Right.
So you could be getting hundreds, you could be playing, you know, scoring the winning goal, you know, you could be doing all those right things and still not being given any attention for it.
Right. Right.
And kids think,
Yeah.
you listen,
And I love
bad
that about-
attention is
Yeah.
good as good attention.
Yeah, and I love how Thomas's Hope is focusing on that. 'Cause we've spoken a lot about the siblings being supported, and it's one of the things I love about Sherpa that I think makes us unique, that we're working not only with the individual patient, but at the same time working with the family. And sure enough, we've spoken about this, the people who are most successful in Sherpa so far are the ones that we're
That the
tag teaming, so to speak.
Yes, when the family gets engaged,
Yeah.
it's such a whole different ball game. Just to help them, I because you know, and I'm not revealing anything, but working with a family who's, you know, their loved one is not pursuing treatment right now, and how do they all live in that house? So you know, dealing with mom and dad and trying to help them create healthy boundaries and know where they are and know what they need to do.
Right.
And my daughter and I are actually going to go and see their daughter. They have a daughter also. So listen, I'm not a sibling, so my daughter can speak sibling to sibling about
Right.
what's going on with their right.
Right. And even when we're
And that's
able,
important.
yes, for sure. Even when we're able to connect someone with treatment, the nature of addiction is they don't always stick with it, right?
Correct.
So we're having to support each other through that, and sometimes they come back to us. That's happened already. And sometimes it does give us comfort to know that Linda and Nicole and everyone at Thomas's Hope is working with the family. So we didn't lose that family.
No, you didn't lose that family, you know, and it's a work in progress. Listen,
Right.
not everything's going to happen.
Exactly.
It's not gonna
The
be
first,
perfect.
it's
Right.
never going to be perfect. It's, you know, it's a work. It's always a
Right.
work in progress.
Recovery is not a straight line.
No, and you know, coming into immediate withdrawal with Narcan, especially with opiates, is not a comfortable feeling. So you're very apt to want to get the hell out of there and use again,
Yep.
Yeah.
because they're not made to feel so comfortable right away.
Right.
And if you can't get into detox right away, you're in trouble.
Right.
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the staff, having done the in-service the last few times, we're seeing some healthcare professionals that are pretty torn up, that are pretty beat up,
Yeah.
and having to witness life and death always in the ER
Right.
from many different things. But seeing this overdose epidemic come in and being unable to really help them leave with a cast on their arm, or you know, something as simple as that. Here's your
Yes.
medication, in 7 days you're going to feel like a new person.
Right.
That's not the case with all
Right.
of that. So we have some people with
Yeah.
some traumatic,
Absolutely. It's very difficult to stay compassionate day in and
Yes.
day out. It's a survival mechanism to drop some of that. And I like to think that our being there has allowed them to open up a little and actually change the feeling in the emergency
and they're
department.
combative, you know, and they're worried about getting hurt. We really
Yeah.
heard that yesterday, you know, but we really heard yesterday also the stigma about Narcan.
Yes.
That was a very, I don't think the gentleman was quite prepared for my response since he didn't know who I was. So just saying that Narcan is like a get out of jail free card. You could just feel free to use drugs over and over and over again.
Right.
But that's an educational opportunity.
Yes.
And the truth of the matter is that, you know, we may not ever change
Correct.
the mindset of all. We would hope, right? But there are some people who still suffer with that. This is a choice. They did this to themselves, and they won't ever bridge that concept, which is unfortunate. But that's also why I think it's a blessing that we have this opportunity to have a peer program there, because of that. We're not going to be able to change everybody's views. And we're getting more people on our team, which is great.
Yes.
But I think that's the beauty of it. And I think if we lead with compassion and we lead with like humanity, that we're gonna mimic the behavior that we expect, and we may actually change the whole entire environment in which how people deal with individuals who are suffering and their family members. And to me, that's pretty awesome.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing it already. I mean, the staff at Good Samaritan has been incredible. And even those who were a little skeptical at the beginning, they're open to learning, and they've really softened, I would say, and has been so supportive.
I agree, you know, and it's just that, you know, that opportunity to educate them on really, you know, so I wish I had Narcan the morning that my son passed away.
Yeah, that was a powerful moment.
That was a powerful moment. I don't think he expected that moment, but it was the perfect moment for that to happen. It was meant to happen for him.
Yes, yeah.
In there.
Yeah.
But I think that we're also, I told Glenda, you know, the head of nursing over there, that Thomas's Hope would like to do something for the staff there every month, some kind of a support
I love that.
meeting. Could even just be fun. Could just be a fun activity for them. I just see something like giving them a little respite.
Right.
And just giving them, hey, you know what? We appreciate everything that you do, and I know that you do a lot.
Yeah.
And if you need to talk to anybody, we're here for you too.
Right. Right.
I think they need to hear that.
Yeah, it's such a tough job.
Such a tough job. Such a tough job. They really said one story yesterday that just broke my heart, that a mother, and there is a very specific cry that a parent does when your child dies, and it's an ungodly sound that a mother makes. And she said she heard that sound coming down the hallway because her son, they were doing everything that they could, but he had already passed. They were really doing it for them, but they had already lost a child. So this was their second child.
Oh, goodness.
And then a few days later, the mom committed suicide. So I don't think anybody expects that of, you know, that's not right in anybody's world, that's for sure. No. And I think that's why we have to have so much more compassion for what's going on.
Right.
And education in the community. So, you know.
Right. And I would say even the strength and the resilience that I've seen in these families is incredible. Because when we really look at what they've been going through, everything that happened before they got to those emergency department tours, it's commendable. It's amazing how the strength that is in this community before they even make that decision.
Yeah, well, they have no choice. So as my dad used to say, tomorrow's going to come whether you want it to or not.
Yeah.
So spit on your problem and get up and get moving. That's literally what he used to tell me.
That's true.
So, but you have no choice. Tomorrow's going to come, and you're going to face whatever you have to face.
Right.
And not everything needs to be solved immediately, but to have that support.
Right.
And, you know, just having somebody say, hey, breathe, just for a moment, just for now.
Yeah.
Take a breath.
And we're always talking, as peers, we don't necessarily have to solve every problem for people. It's not always our job. We are trying to link people with services, but sometimes it's just being there and knowing that a person isn't walking that path alone.
And you know, quite frankly, we're not going to solve all their problems and issues.
Yeah.
And being able to let go with love
Yeah.
Because you just plant the seed, you make yourself available, and then you really do have to detach with love.
Right.
Because you can't carry everybody.
Right.
You
Right.
just can't.
Yeah.
It's not our job to do that.
Right. Right. And I also wouldn't want to take someone's recovery path from them, even if I could do it for
Yeah.
them. That's a gift. That's
That is-
theirs, and I don't want to take that from
And
them.
that's part of the work, right? So
Yeah.
that's part of, you know, what you need to do in order to change behaviors and do things like that. I mean, for me, it's kind of like, I don't want to say like a wings or like a safety net, but peers are really there to hold your hand and like help you.
Training wheels.
Kind of, but it's really, it's I-based. So
Yes.
it's what are your needs and how can I help you attach or navigate what your needs are? Because we know, even as professionals, navigating the system is quite difficult. And even with the best of tools, it's very frustrating. So think about how it is for an individual who has just gotten everything that they used to cope stripped away from them, and how overwhelming it is for them to try to engage the process to even help themselves. So I think,
And to feel again.
yes.
Because now they're going to
Right.
feel things.
Right.
And they're
Same
not
with-
prepared for that.
Same with families, right? So a lot of families are taken advantage of because of their insurance benefits and things like that. So having someone to kind of talk those things through is also really important, especially with the temperature that's out there today.
Yeah.
So,
And we're going to be right back after this message. So we'll see you in a few minutes, and you're going to hear more about the Sherpa program and the light that it's going to bring to all communities.
My age is 18 years old, and my name is Evan.
My name is Sean, and I'm 19 years old.
My name is Justin, I'm 16.
My name is Angelica. I'm 18 years old.
Marijuana, and I was 13 years old.
Marijuana, and my age was 13.
The first drug I ever tried was marijuana, and I was 12 years old.
It was marijuana, and I was 11 years old.
Yes, and that escalated to promethazine, lean.
I began to take pills like Xanax, Percocets.
I began using other substances such as pills and alcohol.
I then went on to cocaine and pills and quickly progressed to heroin. I was 13 years old when I first started using heroin. I had like aspirations of going to like an Ivy League school, and that quickly, within like a year or two, changed. I stopped going to my classes, I stopped going to school altogether eventually. All my friends were kind of just dropping me.
I started getting in trouble in school, eventually kicked out. I got in trouble with the law a lot.
I wasn't really hanging out with a lot of sober people, just people that use. I overdosed at 15. I've been at Outreach for 5 months. Outreach honestly really helps you. It shows that you're honestly worth something. And it's possible to become sober if you put in progress. But it's not just gonna be handed to you, you really have to want to change. Inpatient, you can't just leave. You stay here and you have to deal with it. That's what I feel like a lot of kids need.
In a long-term facility, the counselors get to know the resident better, and they get to actually work with them more than in a short-term 28-day facility. And it really gives kids a chance to work on themselves rather than being rushed through a program, just to be thrown back into life, going back into the same old bad habits that they were doing before.
Coming in here, I couldn't believe how long I would have to be here, but after a couple months, like, you know, talking to counselors, I kind of came to the realization that, like, I need a lot of time and work to repair everything I've done.
The things that we get taught here, you know, it really does help you in life, and it gives you a different perspective. It's very important for a kid to have a family involvement in treatment so they don't think they're alone in this. We communicate on a better basis than how we used to. We understand each other more. And that was from the help of Outreach.
They come every Wednesday night for support group. They come to a group every other week.
They come to peer support group to discuss their problems also. My relationship honestly has gotten a lot better. Because I remember my mom used to never want to say anything to me because she would be scared of my reaction. I'm starting to realize in here, like, I really have to take advantage of the fact that I have her still.
When I was about 14 is when my parents realized that I had several different problems, such as behavioral issues, and the behavioral issues kind of stemmed from my drug use. I began caring less about myself and others. Outreach has really made me realize how important family is. If I was out of state in a program where my parents were not involved, I would have never been able to strengthen my relationship with them. My father told me that I've inspired him to make changes in his life, and that meant a lot to me. I've never heard my dad be inspired by something before, and I was just proud that it was me.
Welcome back to Resolutions for Recovery. We're talking about the Sherpa program, so that's certified peer recovery coaches in the emergency room. So we're not going to just have the same merry-go-round that keeps happening and happening and happening. And we'll have to talk prevention at some time too, because you know how I feel about that. If we don't start changing
From the beginning.
10 years from now, I really shudder to think what will be going on with the influx of everything else that's coming down.
Well, I mean, prevention, starts young.
Very young.
But, drug trends will always change, but if we don't change the mindset around them and how we address them and talk about it like as a health issue and how do we protect ourselves and make healthy choices, it's just always going to be another drug.
Just or drink or food or
Self-harm, yeah.
there's so many things that kids do today because they're just under too much pressure.
Yeah.
Too much pressure.
Right. So in the emergency departments, we're getting the end.
We're getting the end result
Right.
of many years of,
Right. Yeah.
and the insidiousness of it is when kids start at age 15, it's wildfire in their brain, and that it can go anywhere. I mean, if anybody was watching the commercials right now, the children that I interviewed at Outreach, which is the treatment facility for 12-year-olds to 18-year-olds, talks about in 6 months going from smoking a joint to shooting heroin,
Right.
because their brain is not ready,
Right.
nor is any part of them ready to make any kind of those decisions. If we don't start changing that dynamic, we're a lost society. And we're definitely doing something wrong when the average age of onset is 10.
Right.
What are we doing to our 10-year-olds to make
Right.
them feel they need to escape?
Right. But it feels good to be doing intervention
Yes,
where we can.
because
in this moment.
recovery is a huge community now, right?
Yeah.
It is.
On Long Island, it's a huge community, and it's so really unbelievable to see it come out of the church basement.
Yeah. Right. And then the recovery coach team that we have is incredible. The
Yes.
work that they are doing to just model recovery and show people what it's like, that it is real, and just warmly inviting them into our community. It's been a beautiful thing, and they are working so hard.
They are working so hard, and they're getting a little frustrated. So let's talk about that frustration a little bit. So insurance barrier is and will continue to be
Right.
a barrier to treatment.
Right.
It was 6 years ago with my son.
Right.
It's still going to be.
Right.
Even though we've changed an awful lot of laws, they're still finding a way to contain it to 14 days, and
Right.
sometimes they don't even pay that.
Right.
So
Right. And there's a few people who have been at this for a while, that they're out on the street, they don't have ID, they don't have, they may even have insurance, but they have no way of proving it. We've run into that a little bit
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
And you know what? Unfortunately, the state will pick that up. And for anyone that says, oh, the state's picking that up, that goes back to us.
Right.
So we are the taxpayers that are funding that, and families that have coverage but can never get to it have to resort to taking their loved one off their policy and putting them on Medicaid so that they can get, because Medicaid will pay for treatment. So let's figure that out. The insurance company always gets richer. They get your premium and they don't pay your claims.
Right.
So there's a big disconnect there that we still, you're not supposed to post unbelievable profits and your CEO make a $5 million bonus for not paying claims.
I mean, health insurance companies, they're publicly traded, so there's a dollar sign behind that.
Oh, always follow the money.
So, and it's not, I mean, it's, speaking of someone who has had many medical procedures, it's not limited to substance abuse, but it feels so wrong when it's substance abuse.
Yes.
Just because of everything else and just because of the critical care that
And
they
mental
need.
health issues,
and mental
too.
health too. So there's definitely some parity issues, but the model for healthcare doesn't support the needs of individuals that need treatment, right? So we talk about the medical model and how it's like shifted to less.
Yes,
And
for more money.
for more.
For more premium.
But we need more treatment for people who are suffering.
Yeah.
We need longer stays. So
Right.
it's kind of like,
Right. I mean, it's interesting. We talk about mental health,
Yeah.
right? Which is an area where the peer model has been around for a while and it's been very successful. But on the mental health side, the medical model has predominated for quite some time. And if anything, we're moving it towards more of a recovery model. On the addiction side, it's the reverse. The medical, they've been largely ignored for
Yes.
decades by the medical world, and we're actually working to get people to see this, to see that it is a medical illness deserving as much attention as any other.
yeah.
Well, it is a brain disorder.
Sure.
However, when you've been out shooting heroin, you have other health issues going on.
Right.
Your heart certainly is affected, all the organs in your body, everything is compromised. So they're not even getting basic medical needs met also. Unless they show backup at the emergency room with sepsis, cellulitis from a dirty needle, and then that's life-threatening.
Right. But that also impacts their ability to get treatment
Yes.
and go inpatient and do things like that. We hear those stories all the time because they're not medically stable to get the level of care that they need at the time that they need it. It's like an ongoing vicious cycle. So it's interesting how, real-time peer work will really
Right.
Expose many
real-time gaps.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that
Yeah.
Yeah.
already. Like one of the big things we're coming up against is kind of this no man's land between someone being not medically stable enough for one of the crisis resources on Long Island.
which there are only 2 of.
Right. But not, quote, sick enough for a medical detox. And that's happening very frequently.
A little too frequently.
Yeah.
It's a little too frequently that happens.
Right.
So you meet someone in the emergency room, you give them hope, you give them compassion, you give them your friendship, and you say, this is what we're going to do for you, and they end up on the street again. So all their hopes and dreams have once again been crushed,
Yes.
which leads them to believe, I'm not worthy of recovery.
Yeah.
I'm not deserving of it.
Yeah.
I might as well get high, because that's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely need to do better. We need to figure out how to streamline processes better and have continuum of care. And I think that the peers in the ER is actually the first step for that.
Yes.
And I think that it will help pave some uncharted territory so that we can move towards like a better model to address the needs of the population that we're trying to serve, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to save lives, provide support, and give like decent care, because they're not even getting decent care.
Right.
Right.
And that's what's
Right.
that's what's horrible about it. And when you compare it to other chronic diseases, there is no comparison, and that's not
Chronic
okay.
fatal diseases.
Yeah, it's not okay.
Right.
Right.
And that's what's so unacceptable about it from where I sit, because we're talking about life and death.
Right.
And I don't think that, we're not God. We shouldn't decide when it's okay and when it's not. I think that everyone should just be given the same standard of care regardless, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. But even, you're right, just between hospitals, just pointing out the flaws between their own systems and the need for them to change.
Right. Right.
Because if the need is in one emergency room that a physician has already determined that they are not medically stable and they need detox, that should be enough to go directly into detox.
Right.
Within the same
Right.
healthcare system.
In an ambulance, not
In
in
an
a recovery
ambulance.
coach's car.
Correct. Right. Not in a recovery
Right. If they're not
coach's-
medically stable,
or
then
my
they're not
car
medically stable.
with
Right.
bringing somebody else, because
Right.
that poses a whole other.
Right.
You're with someone who's not stable. Period.
Right.
So you should never be
Right,
in the car
right,
alone with them.
Right. I mean, the good news is that we're gathering this data,
Yes.
and everybody's listening.
Yes.
And we're in. Is it okay that the recovery coaches spend 12 hours only to be told no at the 11th? No, of course it's
No, it's not okay.
But we're gathering some really good data that is qualitative, and that we can feed back, and it is improving. We're seeing a big difference now. It's completely different than it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we are making connections.
Yes, and fortunately, Dr. Patrick O'Shaughnessy has said, we're going to make this work.
Yes.
No matter what.
Yes, and he and the whole Catholic health system has been
And
fantastic.
that's a gift in and of itself. They've committed to the result,
Right.
and they will figure out the way they're going to do it along the way
Right.
as time goes
Right.
on.
And we just have to support the recovery coaches through
Yes.
this learning curve,
Yeah.
because it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and it's very frustrating. And it's very, I'll just share. I mean, I've been working for 3 weeks to get this young woman who's been in 15 rehabs, 5 overdoses, you name it. Got her into a facility today, and 2 hours later she walked out. And you're just like, really? And mom is
Right. Yeah. And this is crisis.
Spinning.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the type of work where you sometimes don't know the outcome, or the outcome isn't what you thought it was going to be, and we need to find a way to support each other through that and be okay with that.
I just let go and let God. That's what I've learned
Right.
to do, because I learned very quickly when I first started to do this. They were like all my kids. So you carried them and you worried about them, and
Right.
not my job. I
Yeah.
plant the seed,
Right.
not my job to water it.
Right,
That's
right.
left to your higher
Right.
power.
And we're trying to remember that there's a difference between a vision for Long Island and a program goal for our small program. So Not One More is a wonderful, inspirational vision for Long Island, not necessarily within our power right now at this one
Correct.
hospital.
Well,
Absolutely.
Even with the amazing work and the numbers that we're getting, which are good.
Listen, the reality is there's going to be many more, unfortunately. But it shouldn't be okay for anybody in our society to accept that fact.
Right. It's too fragmented.
It's just,
Yeah.
and I said this to someone just the other day. I wrote an op-ed for Newsday in, I think, 2014. And I ended up with the full center page of Newsday. Was really, and that was for me, God, my higher power, whatever, and a video and the whole 9 yards. And I had to mentally prepare. I did mentally prepare to go online and read the comments that said, good, another scumbag is dead. He deserved to die. Like on and on and on. And I read them, but if I hadn't mentally prepared, I probably would have gone out and run some people over, but I didn't.
Right.
So I said, wow, there's a lot of education that needs to be done on this disease. Because for anybody to stand there and say he deserved to die, that's pretty horrific.
I mean, it's just the most uneducated statement
It
anyone
is.
could ever make. Besides
Yeah.
the fact that it's just hurtful and
It's just cruel.
it's cruel. because
It's just cruel.
no one deserves to die, not even the most horrible person. You know, I mean, there's a time and place, but it's just not appropriate. It's just horrible.
Right. It's just, but that's the level that's here on Long Island, certainly, and across the country, that we have these mindsets.
Right. Right.
So do we want to lose a whole generation of people? Because we're losing a whole generation of 18 to 25-year-olds right now.
Right.
And they are brilliant people, by the way, because they can certainly figure out an awful lot of things to keep their dirty little secret going, right? Imagine if they use that for good.
Well, I mean, for me, I always got to take the upside, right? We've made tons of strides
Absolutely.
in the community, and we've moved the needle a little, not enough, but I feel like innovative programs like this, hopefully 24-hour access centers eventually, and
Well, that's coming.
you know, changing
FCA has the grant for that.
Me too. Yeah.
changing how we do the model by responding to the needs of the community. The peer recovery coaches will be able to have like a really, really close pulse on what's going on, like on the heartbeat. So I think that collectively speaking, we may make significant changes. Is it going to happen overnight? No. I mean, look at how long it took to change the mindset around smoking.
True. To take 10 years plus.
I think it took like 20.
Yeah.
So when we think about that, think about how long it's going to take to change the idea about I can take a pill to make me feel better, and how we represent ourselves in a community, and kind of, you know, we're over scheduled, we want more, we're constantly going. I mean, until we take a look at all of those things, like full health models, nothing's going to change.
Yes.
So we're doing things.
Wellness model. Not, I'm sick and now I have to go to the doctor.
Right, it's the preventative piece. It's kind of like, what do I need to do to care for myself so that I don't get to that point? Our healthcare model is still like, I'm not going to help you until I'm really sick.
Correct.
Instead of really paying for services that keep you well, we want to pay more for services once you're sick, which makes no sense. We're kind of really behind from a healthcare system compared to like other countries.
Right.
And I think that we have an opportunity here, and it's unfortunate that we need to lose so many people and kids and parents and for it to get here. But at least we're getting support from Oasis, from Governor Cuomo to do great programming and to fund different things so that our community can be real-time responsive to the needs, which I think is great.
Say, you know, this year advocating for Thomas's Hope, and we were successful, is that they don't want to fund the same programs because they don't like that there are no results from those programs yet.
Right.
Or, you know, we've been funding the same things. This is what the senators will say. We've been funding the same projects for 20 years.
Not this one.
Not this one. So that's right, not this one.
Right.
But this one is innovative. This one is helping people immediately.
Yeah, and it does focus on wellness. I love that we brought that up, because as a recovery coaches, we're not clinicians. I can't treat anybody's illness because I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor, but I can talk to you about wellness. I can talk to you about, and we're treating people as they're the best resource in their own recovery.
Yes,
we can
what
ask
do
people
they need?
and what works for you, what's worked in the past. Well, then let's do that.
Right. Or are you open to some acupuncture, to some different modalities that really may change your mind about what's going on?
Right.
Gio, can you just put up the pictures? We'll talk. So there's myself and Melissa and Dr. Jeff and Dr. Jeff Reynolds, I should say. We all know who he is. Dr. Patrick O'Shaughnessy, and that's Dr. Rayo there, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Chris Rayo, who heads up the emergency department at Good Sam.
And at Good Sam, so let's talk about that. They're going to be starting the Suboxone induction
Yes.
right in the ER.
Yes,
So
which is great. So to date, we've been providing this support without the benefit of any medication-assisted treatment. We're supporting people through 24 or 48 hours of active withdrawal frequently. And Dr. Rayo is training the doctors to be waivered so that they can prescribe Suboxone, and I believe
somewhere between 3 and 7 days. I know they, maybe 5 will be the magic number so that they can get engaged with a physician that will take them from there. Unfortunately, here on Long Island, the doctors that prescribe Suboxone also want $600 cash for that prescription. So we have a lot of work to do on that front.
But we're doing a lot of work to create more of an infrastructure and identifying the agencies that are
that are available to do that.
And it is growing. There are some, we're trying to kind of create a calendar so that we know which agencies have prescribers when, so that we will be able to link people within that time frame. So if someone does choose to use medication-assisted treatment, it's not for everybody, but if they do choose to do that, they should have that opportunity.
And there is no shame in using whatever you can.
Absolutely not.
Whatever gets you to the magic. Listen, taking methadone or Suboxone or naloxone for the rest of your life is better than shooting 20 bags of heroin a day.
And for many people, it gives them a chance to get the people, places, and things in their life together. It doesn't have to be forever. It's whatever works. And that's part of what we do as recovery coaches. There's multiple paths, and that's not up to me to decide.
Absolutely. I have heard from many different people that the Vivitrol shot or Suboxone just quiets all those cravings so you can concentrate on changing the other parts of your life.
And you can learn to manage emotions, as you were talking about.
Well, it gives them some stabilization for at least a period of time while they're, I mean, think about how anxiety provoking it is to try to call a cajillion places, get yourself in somewhere, find out that they don't take your insurance, or it wasn't quick enough, you lost your spot, and not having anything to kind of tame you. So you're going to go out, it's not an easy thing just to stop cold turkey. Listen, many people tried it with cigarettes. Not many people were successful doing just cigarettes. Listen, we wouldn't be an obese nation if it was easy to give up food. Let's just keep it simple on those things, You want what you want when you want it. It just so happens that people want and need things that are not good for them. Listen, it's medically proven. It's, so it should be up to the individual if they choose to use that as a form of sustainability for them while they're going through their recovery process. They should be entitled to it. And that's it. And it shouldn't be a judgment, and it should just be there for them, and they should have the supports. It would just be like anybody going to the hospital for insulin. And then having to go to the doctor. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. You're managing your disease, however you manage it. So, while we're talking about that too, so I'm glad that we're there in the emergency room, because Governor Cuomo came out with a press release today talking about patient brokering. So there are many people that hide under the guise of helping others when they are actually body brokering your loved one to a place, usually typically out of New York State, telling them that, I'll get on the plane with them and we'll get them there for an outrageous cost of treatment. And families are left with $70,000, $80,000 worth of bills. And exhausting what they do have in insurance benefit, so that when they come back to Long Island, they have no coverage. So they've paid $200,000 for 30 days of treatment, they have no more coverage, and they're still not well. So that, I'm so pleased that we are, a force right there in that one emergency room for today, and the rest will follow.
Which is also good, because with peers and coaches and family members in the ER, we can talk through that process. Not all out-of-state facilities are bad.
No, absolutely
And
not.
sometimes that is a good choice for
Absolutely.
your loved one, but there's a process and a conversation that should take place there. It shouldn't just be like you need to go there, and you know, you should be able to have a discussion about what the pros and cons are, what you can afford on the back end of that, and then if they still choose to go, okay.
And that's perfectly
Yeah.
fine. I'm all good with that, but the person that's sitting in the emergency room should also tell that family member,
Absolutely.
oh, by the way, I'm going to make $5,000 for getting your kid on this plane, and I really, the treatment may be appropriate for them, maybe not. I really don't know, because you know what?
Right.
I've got 6 hours in recovery myself,
Right.
so it's all good. I have no
Right.
idea what I'm talking about, but I'm going to
Right.
get your kid out of here. But they prey on
Yes.
that family being so distraught
Yes, that desperation.
and
Desperation.
giving them, I can breathe for the next 30 days because I know where he is.
And he's
Right.
safe, or she's safe. Right.
Right.
And they think they're safe.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
it's safe,
but yep.
but they're not.
Yeah, and service linkage should be made based on what's clinically appropriate.
Correct.
What the person is ready for.
And we have great programs in our state.
We have unbelievable programs in our state. We have a pretty big state.
We do.
So there's plenty of treatment. The notion of there are no beds really doesn't exist anymore. Oasis has real-time tracking on their website of where there are beds.
Right.
And yes, you may have to travel, but that's okay.
There is still a demand, right? And not an, I mean, we still need more inpatient beds and
Yeah,
detox.
we're still figuring it out.
We're still
Yeah.
figuring it out. But here on Long Island, I mean, it's only a couple of months ago that in Blue Point, Bayport,
Yep.
that they shut down Seafield's trying to open a women's facility.
Right.
So shame and stigma alive and well.
Yeah, we could really
But-
use that.
Yeah.
Right about now.
And ironically enough, the boy that drove drunk and crashed into the house and was proud of it on News 12 was from Bayport, Blue Point. But they don't have a problem there. I needed to point that out because I'm fresh. But, you know, they need to open their eyes in their own community. We all need to open our eyes.
Right. Right.
Well, that's that alcohol conversation piece, right?
Yeah, because
Because
alcohol's not a drug.
okay,
It's legal.
it's legal,
Yeah, because that's what we think. So your 13-year-old should drink it.
right?
Right.
That's a whole nother ball game for us, right?
Yeah. And I just love, you know, the wonderful advocacy that groups like Thomas's Hope are doing with the opiate crisis, that's going to extend to alcohol and all these other drugs because they're not going anywhere.
Nope.
They're not going, you know, and Melissa, we didn't even mention the very first patient that we had
Yes.
came to the two of us,
Right.
and it was alcohol
Yeah.
intoxication.
Right. And I spoke
In
to
a
him
big
this
way.
week, and he's doing great.
Yes, and so is his family.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, for
Thank
joining
you.
me
Thanks
For
tonight.
having us.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Next week, it's Meet the Sherpas. So, you know, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about this innovative program and really just bringing some encouragement and light and happiness into what, you know, this can be, it will be the changing point in this disease. Thanks so much and have a blessed weekend.